The champagne glass slipped from my fingers. It shattered on the marble floor of the Plaza Hotel. Everyone turned to stare, but I wasn't looking at the broken glass. I was staring at the man who had just walked into the room. The same man whose wife had been mocking my accent for the last 10 minutes. My name is Charlotte Hayes. I'm 32 years old. I moved to New York from Oxford 3 years ago. Tonight was supposed to be simple. Just another networking event. Just another chance to build my translation business. I had actually come here for a meeting, but it was canceled at the last minute. I was already thinking of leaving when everything changed. But nothing about tonight would be simple. Let me go back to where it all started. 20 minutes earlier. I was standing near the grand piano. The ballroom was filled with New York's elite. Men in perfect suits, women dripping in diamonds. Everyone seemed to know everyone else, everyone except me. I held my champagne and tried to look confident. Inside, my heart was racing. These events always made me nervous. All these powerful people. All these important connections. One wrong word could ruin everything. That's when I heard the laugh. Oh my God, did you hear that? I turned around, 2 women were standing behind me. Both were dressed in designer gowns. Both were staring directly at me. The taller one had perfectly styled blonde hair. Her jewelry probably cost more than my rent. I glanced down at my own simple navy dress. Neat and professional, but nothing compared to their glittering outfits. She leaned toward her friend and whispered loudly enough for me to hear. She sounds so strange. Where do you think she's from? The shorter woman giggled. I have no idea. But that accent is just off. Doesn't she know how to speak properly? My cheeks burned. They were talking about me. About my British accent, about the way I pronounced my words. I wanted to walk away. I wanted to disappear. But something made me stay. Something made me listen. The blonde woman stepped closer to me. Her smile was fake and cold. Excuse me, dear, she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. I'm Serena Campbell. This is my friend Madison Clark. We couldn't help but notice your unique way of speaking. Madison nodded eagerly. Yes, it's quite interesting. Are you from somewhere exotic? The way they said exotic made it sound like a disease. I straightened my shoulders. I'm British, from Oxford actually. Serena's eyebrows shot up. Oh, how quaint. Well, now that you're in America, you might want to consider speech lessons. We have excellent coaches here who can help you sound more professional. Madison giggled again. Yes. American English is much clearer, much more proper for business, don't you think? My face felt hot, my hands were shaking. These women were treating me like I was broken. Like my accent was something to be ashamed of. I appreciate your concern, I said quietly. But I'm quite comfortable with how I speak. Serena exchanged a look with Madison. They both smirked. Of course you are, dear. Serena said. But sometimes we don't know what's best for us, do we? I mean, if you want to succeed in New York, you really should try to fit in better. Madison leaned in. Serena should know, her husband Richard is one of the most successful tech CEOs in the city. She knows all about what makes people successful. And what makes them fail. Serena added with a cruel smile. I felt smaller with each word. These women were destroying my confidence piece by piece. And they seemed to be enjoying every second of it. That's when the commotion started. A group of men in expensive suits rushed toward our corner of the ballroom. They looked worried. Panicked even. One of them was tall and broad-shouldered. His hair was perfectly styled. His suit probably cost more than my car. He was scanning the room desperately. Serena's face lit up. Richard, darling! The man turned. His eyes found Serena, then briefly glanced at me and Madison. He looked stressed and distracted. Serena, I need your help, he said urgently. The Takahashi meeting is starting now. The translator we hired didn't show up. We're stuck. My heart stopped. Takahashi, I knew that name. Serena looked confused. Translator? For what? Richard ran his hand through his hair. The Japanese investor, Kenji Takahashi. He's considering putting $50 million into our company, but he doesn't speak English well. We need someone who speaks fluent Japanese now. Now, Madison whispered to Serena. Isn't that the deal you said could make Richard a billionaire? Serena nodded, but she looked lost. Darling, I don't know any Japanese translators. Can't you use Google Translate or something? Richard's face went pale. Google Translate? For a $50 million deal? Serena, this is serious. If we can't communicate with him properly, he'll walk away. I watched this conversation in complete shock. These people had no idea what they were dealing with. No idea how to handle international business. But I did. I cleared my throat. Excuse me. All three of them turned to look at me. Serena's expression was annoyed. Not now, dear, she said dismissively. We're having an important conversation. I ignored her tone. I looked directly at Richard. I speak Japanese, I said simply. The room went quiet. Richard stared at me. Serena's mouth fell open. Madison looked confused. You, what? Richard asked. I speak Japanese fluently. I also speak Mandarin, French, and German. I'm a professional translator. Richard's eyes widened. Are you serious? Completely serious. I've been doing this for 8 years. I have certifications in all 4 languages. Serena stepped between us. Her face was red with embarrassment. Richard, you can't be considering this. She's nobody. We don't even know her qualifications. She could ruin everything. Madison nodded quickly. Plus, look how she talks. If she can't even speak English properly, how can she translate? I felt that familiar burn of humiliation. But this time, something else rose up inside me. Determination, anger, a desire to prove them wrong. Richard looked at his watch. We don't have time for this. Takahashi is waiting upstairs. If you can really do this, I'll pay you $10,000 for 2 hours of work. $10,000. More than I made in most months. I can do it, I said firmly. Serena grabbed Richard's arm. Darling, this is insane. You're trusting our biggest deal to some random woman with a weird accent? Richard shook her off. Serena, we're desperate. The translator I hired canceled 30 minutes ago. She's our only option. He looked at me again. What's your name? Charlotte Hayes. Charlotte, I need you to be completely honest. Can you handle high-level business translation? This isn't tourist conversation. This is complex financial negotiation. I straightened my shoulders. All those years of training, all those hours of study, all those certifications. This was my moment. Mr. Campbell, I've translated for Fortune 500 companies, government officials, and international law firms. I can handle your meeting. Richard nodded quickly. Then let's go now. As we walked toward the elevator, I could hear Serena and Madison whispering frantically behind us. This is a disaster, Serena hissed. He's going to lose everything because of that woman. Should we follow them? Madison asked. Absolutely. I need to see this train wreck happen. The elevator doors closed. Richard, 2 of his associates, and I rode up in tense silence. I could see Richard's reflection in the polished doors. He looked terrified. Charlotte, he said quietly, I need you to know, this deal could make or break my company. If it goes wrong, it won't go wrong, I said calmly. Trust me. The elevator dinged. Floor 23, the doors opened. We walked down a hallway lined with expensive artwork. At the end was a conference room with glass walls inside. I could see a man in a dark suit sitting at a long table. Even from a distance, I could tell he was Japanese. His posture was formal, professional, slightly impatient. That's Takahashi, Richard whispered. He's been waiting for 20 minutes. We entered the room. Takahashi looked up. His expression was polite but cool. Richard gestured to me. Mr. Takahashi, this is Charlotte Hayes. She be translating for us today. Takahashi studied me carefully. Then he spoke in rapid Japanese. I listened intently. Then I turned to Richard. Mr. Takahashi says he was told the meeting would begin 30 minutes ago. Mr. Takahashi says he was told the meeting would begin 30 minutes ago. He's wondering if American business practices are always this disorganized. Richard's face went pale. Tell him we apologize deeply for the delay. Technical difficulties with our original translator. I turned back to Takahashi. I spoke in perfect, fluent Japanese. My pronunciation was crisp, my grammar was flawless. Takahashi's eyebrows rose slightly. He responded in Japanese, his tone warmer now. I translated for Richard. He says my Japanese is excellent. He's impressed by my accent. He asks where I studied. Tell him you studied at Oxford, Richard said quickly. I spoke to Takahashi again. His face lit up with interest. He launched into a longer response. He says Oxford has one of the finest Japanese language programs in the world. He's delighted to meet someone with such proper education and pronunciation. Just then, the conference room door burst open. Serena and Madison rushed in. Richard. Serena called out loudly. How is everything going? Is she managing to communicate? Takahashi looked startled by the interruption. He spoke quickly in Japanese. I translated. Mr. Takahashi is asking who these women are and why they're interrupting a business meeting. Richard's jaw tightened. Serena, you cannot be in here. This is a private negotiation. But Serena wasn't listening. She had spotted Takahashi and was walking toward him with a bright smile. Hello, she said loudly and slowly, as if speaking to a child. I'm Richard's wife. Welcome to America. Takahashi looked confused and slightly offended. He spoke in Japanese again. I translated. He's asking if your wife often attends business meetings uninvited. Richard's face was red now. Serena, get out now. But Serena was on a mission. She turned to me with a fake smile. Charlotte, dear, I hope you're doing well. Though I have to say, I know a few words of Japanese myself. Maybe I could help? Madison giggled. Yes. Show them how it's done, Serena. My heart sank. These women were about to embarrass themselves and potentially ruin Richard's deal. Serena turned to Takahashi. She spoke loudly and slowly in what she clearly thought was Japanese. Konnichiwa. Arigato. Sayonara. She beamed proudly. Madison clapped. Takahashi's expression went from confused to insulted to disgusted. He spoke rapidly in Japanese, his voice sharp with anger. Richard looked at me desperately. What did he say? I hesitated. The translation was not kind. He says that your wife has just insulted him by speaking to him like he's a tourist in a gift shop. He's questioning whether he wants to do business with people who show such disrespect. The room went dead silent. Richard turned to Serena. His voice was deadly quiet. Get out. Now, Serena's face crumpled. But Richard, I was just trying to help. Out. Serena and Madison fled the room. I could hear their heels clicking rapidly down the hallway. Takahashi was still speaking in Japanese. His tone was calmer now, but serious, I translated. He says he's willing to continue the meeting, but only because he respects my translation skills. He says he's never heard a non-native speaker with such beautiful pronunciation. Richard looked at me with something like awe. He said that? Yes. He also says that in Japan, language is treated with great respect. He appreciates working with someone who understands that, for the next hour, I translated the most complex business negotiation of my life, financial terms, legal structures, investment timelines, partnership agreements. Takahashi spoke quickly and used advanced business terminology. Richard asked detailed questions about market strategy and growth projections. I kept up with every word, every nuance, every subtle implication. More than that, I began to add my own insights. When Takahashi mentioned concerns about American market conditions, I suggested phrases that would reassure him. When Richard wanted to emphasize his company's stability, I helped him choose words that would resonate with Japanese business culture. I wasn't just translating anymore, I was facilitating. I was building bridges between two very different ways of thinking. By the end of the meeting, Takahashi was smiling, really smiling. He spoke in Japanese for several minutes. His tone was warm and decisive. I turned to Richard. He's accepting your proposal, all of it. The full $50 million investment. Richard's knees nearly buckled. Are you serious? Completely serious, but there's more. Takahashi was still speaking. He wants to offer me a permanent position as his head of international communications. He says he's been looking for someone with my skills for years. He's offering to triple my current income. Richard stared at me. Triple? I nodded. I could barely believe it myself. Takahashi stood up and bowed formally to me. He spoke one final sentence in Japanese. He says I have the purest pronunciation he's ever heard from a Western speaker. He considers it an honor to work with someone who respects his language so deeply. We all stood and shook hands. Takahashi bowed again, then left with his assistant. Richard and I were alone in the conference room. "Charlotte," he said quietly, "I owe you an apology. You don't owe me anything. You gave me an opportunity. No, I mean for my wife. For what she said about your accent, about how you speak." I smiled. "Your wife doesn't understand that there are many ways to speak English properly, and many languages worth learning." Richard nodded. "She's going to hear about this. The whole room downstairs heard her screaming in here. Everyone's going to know what happened. That's between you and her," I said diplomatically. We took the elevator back down to the ballroom. As soon as the doors opened, I could feel the attention. People were staring, whispering. Richard walked straight to the center of the room. He tapped a champagne glass with a knife. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced loudly, "I want to introduce you to Charlotte Hayes. She just saved my company's biggest deal with her incredible translation skills." The room broke into applause. People began gathering around me. Business cards appeared from every direction. "Ms. Hayes." I could use a translator for my German clients. "Charlotte, do you speak Italian? I have a deal in Rome. My company works with Chinese manufacturers. We need someone like you." I was overwhelmed in 30 minutes. I had gone from being mocked to being the most sought-after person in the room. Across the ballroom, I could see Serena and Madison standing alone near the wall. Other guests were avoiding them. Word had spread about what happened upstairs. Madison kept trying to join conversations, but people would politely excuse themselves. Serena looked like she wanted to disappear. Richard appeared beside me. "Charlotte, I want to make you an offer too." "What kind of offer?" "I want to hire you as my company's head of international relations. Full-time, excellent salary, stock options. Your own team." I was speechless. 2 incredible job offers in one night. I need to think about it," I said. "Of course, but don't think too long after tonight. You're going to have companies fighting over you." He was right. My phone was already buzzing with LinkedIn requests and email inquiries. Later that evening, as the party was winding down, Serena approached me. She looked humiliated and angry. "You think you're so smart," she said quietly. "You think you've won something." I looked at her calmly. "I'm not trying to win anything, Serena. I'm just trying to do my job. Richard is going to forget about this. Tomorrow, everything will go back to normal." I smiled gently. "Maybe, but I'll still speak 5 languages. And you'll still think there's only one right way to talk." Her face reddened. She stormed away without another word. Madison tried to follow her, but Serena snapped at her too. "Leave me alone, Madison. You're just as useless as I am." I felt a moment of pity for both of them. They had spent the evening trying to make me feel small. Instead, they had revealed how small they were themselves. 3 weeks later, I accepted Takahashi's offer. The position was based in Tokyo, with frequent travel to New York and London. The salary was more than I had ever dreamed of earning. My last week in New York, I ran into Richard at a coffee shop near my apartment. "Charlotte, how are you?" "Ready for Tokyo." "Very ready. Thank you again for that opportunity. Thank you for saving my company." The deal with Takahashi has already led to 3 more international partnerships. We sat down with our coffee. Richard looked thoughtful. "Can I ask you something?" He said, "Of course. That night at the plaza, when Serena and Madison were making fun of your accent, how did you stay so calm?" I sipped my coffee. Honestly, I wasn't calm. I was hurt and embarrassed, but you didn't show it. My father taught me something when I was young. He said that people who mock others for being different are usually afraid of their own limitations. Richard nodded slowly. "Serena and I are getting divorced." I wasn't surprised, but I tried to look sympathetic. "That night," he continued, "I realized I had been married to someone who thought success meant making other people feel inferior. That's not who I want to be. I'm sorry to hear about the divorce." "Don't be. I'm happier now. And I've learned to appreciate people who bring different perspectives, different voices, different accents." He smiled. "Your accent, by the way, is one of the most elegant I've ever heard." I laughed. "Thank you. I've grown quite fond of it myself as I packed my apartment for Tokyo." I thought about that night at the plaza, how quickly everything had changed. How one moment of courage had transformed my entire life. Serena had tried to convince me that my accent was wrong. that my way of speaking was unprofessional, that I needed to change to fit in. But the truth was simpler. Success doesn't come from sounding like everyone else, it comes from offering something unique, something valuable, something that can't be replaced. My British accent wasn't a flaw to be fixed. It was part of what made me excellent at my job. It was part of what impressed Takahashi. It was part of what opened doors I never knew existed. The day I left for Tokyo, I posted a message on LinkedIn. 3 weeks ago, someone told me my accent wasn't professional enough for American business today. I start a new position as head of international communications for one of Japan's largest investment firms. The lesson? Never let anyone convince you that being different is being wrong sometimes. Different is exactly what the world needs. The post went viral. Hundreds of comments from people sharing their own stories of overcoming prejudice, of being told they weren't good enough, of proving the doubters wrong. But my favorite comment came from an unexpected source. Madison Clark had written, "Charlotte, I owe you an apology. That night at the plaza I was wrong. Your accent was never the problem. My attitude was, thank you for the lesson in grace under pressure." I smiled as I read it. Maybe people could change after all. 6 months later, I was back in New York for a business conference. I walked into the same Plaza Hotel where it all began. The marble floors still gleamed, the chandeliers still sparkled, but everything felt different now. I was wearing a tailored Japanese business suit. My confidence had grown. My posture was straighter. I belonged here now. At the registration desk, I heard a familiar laugh. I turned around. Madison Clark was standing near the entrance. She looked tired, stressed. Her designer dress looked less expensive than before. She saw me and walked over hesitantly. "Charlotte? Is that really you?" "Hello, Madison. You look incredible. I heard about your new job in Tokyo. Congratulations." "Thank you." She fidgeted with her purse. "Listen, about that night 6 months ago. I wanted to apologize. What Serena and I said was wrong. Cruel, even." I studied her face. She seemed genuine. "I appreciate that." Madison. Serena didn't handle things well after that night. The divorce was messy. She lost most of her friends. People started avoiding her at events. I felt a flicker of sympathy. That must have been difficult. She brought it on herself, but still. Madison paused. "I learned something from watching you that night. Grace under pressure is worth more than any designer dress or expensive jewelry." I smiled softly. "We all make mistakes, Madison. What matters is what we learn from them. Can I ask you something?" "Of course. That night when we were making fun of your accent, did you know you could save Richard's deal?" I shook my head. "No, I had no idea he even needed a translator. I was just trying to survive the conversation." Madison looked amazed. "So you weren't planning revenge?" "Revenge was never the plan. Success was." She nodded slowly. "That makes it even more impressive." We talked for a few more minutes. Madison told me she had started taking language classes. Spanish and French. She wanted to expand her horizons. "You inspired me," she said, "to be better, to judge people less." After she left, I walked through the ballroom where it all happened. I could almost see myself standing by the piano. Young, nervous, unsure of my place in this world. That woman felt like a different person now. My phone buzzed. A text from Takahashi. "Charlotte, the board loved your presentation. You're getting promoted to Director of Global Communications. Well done." I smiled and put my phone away. Then I walked to the exact spot where Serena had mocked my accent. "Thank you," I whispered to the memory. "You gave me the greatest gift of all. You showed me that my differences are my strengths." The next day, I flew back to Tokyo, my real home now, where my accent was respected, where my skills were valued, where I had built the life I always dreamed of. And it all started with 3 simple words that changed everything. I speak Japanese. As my plane lifted off from JFK Airport, I looked down at the city that had given me so much. A city that had tested me, challenged me, and ultimately rewarded me for staying true to myself in Tokyo. I would continue using my voice to build bridges between cultures, to help people understand each other across language barriers, to prove that communication isn't about sounding the same, it's about being understood. And I would do it all with my perfectly imperfect British accent. The accent that Serena Campbell thought was too strange for success. The accent that helped me land the job of my dreams. The accent that taught me the most important lesson of all. Never let anyone else define what makes you worth listening to.